Hi, it's Jonathan. It's September of 2023, and I'm in Oswalds Mill, and I'm going to show you the mill for the first time, really, because we've never done a video inside of here, and I had reasons for that, and that's changed, and so I want to share with you what's going on because it's really significant for me. It's been 26 years since I bought this place and started working on it, and it was a ruin when I got it. It had the exterior structure, which we've seen, but the interior was literally about to collapse. And that's the starting point for what we're going to do right now. So let's take a look. This was the mill proper. This is the ground floor of Oswalds Mill. This goes back to the 1700s, to the 18th century. Not quite sure exactly when this went up. There was a mill on this site in the early 1700s or mid 1700s. And this may predate the United States of America. It's hard to tell. But one thing's for sure, and that is this has been here a really long time. And this was a house mill, so I've talked about. So the milling part of this place happened here, and there was a big wheel that was in here, and there's this race, and if we come closer, you can see what's going on here. So when I got this place, it was all boarded up, as I've said, and there was an arch where those two French doors are, and there's a tunnel. Maybe we'll take a look at that later. It's raining right now, which went underneath the road and brought water from the stream into this building, and it went in here, and I don't want to fall in, but this race was where the water went through. And in a moment we'll go over there, and you can see there's another arch, and the water went out that way. And while the water was in here, it was turning a huge wheel, a breast wheel, and that in turn with gears was turning two sets of really huge stones that lay on top of each other and that was how the flour, the grain was ground into flour or feed for animals. And in this space here, which is empty except for these two columns, and I'll go into that in a moment, was what was called a hearse frame, and it's very, very heavy duty. This whole building is ultra heavy duty. Very heavy duty wooden frame and platforms that held all this stuff that weighed tons, right? And isolated it from the rest of the building because, you know, when this stuff was moving, it made plenty of vibrations and it would shake everything. So this was all pulled out in 1956, 57 by three New York City artists who I actually got to meet one of them. And it's always artists who find the cool stuff and try and do something with it. And these artists wanted to turn this into their studio. This area was kind of a hip area back then, not anymore, but they removed all this and they did some other work on the building to try and make it, you know, appropriate for what they wanted. Because a mill would be filled with machinery. If you've ever been in a functioning mill or an old defunct mill, there's chutes and elevators and all wood. It's really amazing. You know, it's the Industrial Revolution before the Industrial Revolution, and they removed all that stuff, which is sort of sad for me. But honestly, you never would be able to do anything with the space in here if it was filled with all these machines. And so this was all removed. So there was this big empty space when I got this building in 1997. And the problem is that when all this stuff was removed, it's kind of like if somebody knocked out your front teeth, like 2 front teeth, and if you didn't put something in there, all the other teeth, your whole jaw started to collapse in because there's nothing there. And that's what was happening here. So, when I got the place, say 40 years after that happened, everything was doing this. And it was in danger of the whole building just kind of imploding on itself. And the crazy son of a bitch who talked me into buying this place said, I've got that covered. And he proceeded to do something which lasted until now. He jacked the whole center of the building up and he poured these big concrete pylons. And there were 2 huge posts here, one here, like that one over there, and another one behind the camera. And we just pulled these out, actually, last week. That's the one thing I didn't get on camera. I really wish I had, but I couldn't be here for that. This supported the building for the last 25 years, but not really the way it should be done. And I'm going to show you some of the stuff upstairs, and I'll explain to you why you're seeing this video. Because I think this is we've made about 50 of these videos, videos for OMA, videos for Fleetwood Sound, a few videos on listening, but basically the videos have been about like how audio components work. They've been about the audio world, the audio business. What you're going to see in this bit of film is about the background to all that. It's really about like my life, how I got into this, why I'm in this right now, and hopefully maybe some interesting things for you to take away. But let's get back to what's going on here, because you're probably wondering, what the fuck are we in this big construction mess for? And it's a really interesting story. When I got this place, I knew that it had tremendous value for me, that I could do lots and lots of amazing things here. And there's 4 stories in 10,000 square feet. But this floor and this area, I didn't have a really strong idea what to do with it. The floor that had been in here, and we'll cut away to some pictures of that, it's all gone now, of course. The floor was at this level. And these walls supported the floor. And I used this area as a staging area. Ralph Lauren would come here and do the entire campaign for their home line, for their furniture and housewares, and we would stage everything down here and shoot upstairs. If you go online and type in Ralph Lauren Journey's End and look at those pictures, you'll recognize this place. That's all the whole campaign was, Oswalds Mill. But I didn't know really, what was I going to do with this space? And also I didn't have the means to do what I needed, what we're doing now. And more importantly, I also didn't have the right person, because I've gone through 7 stonemasons in 26 years. I can tell you, finding a really great stonemason it's like, looking for hen's teeth, as they say. It's hard. Stonemason I have now, big shout out to Ted Lamastra of Ted Lamastra Masonry, is the best of the best, and I couldn't be in better hands. And what Ted's done here is really remarkable. I'm going to go into some detail about the structural parts of this, but I just want to give you an idea of what this is, because it's all going to look very different. Even as of tomorrow. Because tomorrow, Ted's going to knock out these posts, these concrete posts, which were, I want to say temporary, but they lasted for 26 years, but it's time for them to go. And it's time for us to get the floor back down to the original level. And I want to turn this space into something completely different. And it will be very much audio related. But it will go beyond audio. It will definitely be all about sound. And I want to document this because I'd like to show you the process, because I really want to talk about process in terms of what's happening here and kind of like in my life in general, and maybe some of that's going to be interesting for you. Everyone is so oriented towards their goals, short-term goals, motivation, achieving this and that, and then of course, when you've achieved this goal or that, that's when you think you'll be happy, and it doesn't work that way. So one thing that this place has taught me, and Oswalds Mill has taught me an awful lot about life, is that the process is the product. The process this is it. And I think it's going to turn into something truly amazing. As it is, I love just coming down here, and this has only been like this for a few weeks. And we'll talk about what they've done back here, because it's really mind-blowing. But I almost don't want to see it advance, because I just love being in this right now. However, I want to give you an idea of actually what's happening, because it's super interesting. And it should explain a lot of what's going on. These columns here, these huge wooden beams are called cribbing. And this is what you might see supporting the overpass on like an interstate, for construction. This is the heaviest duty rigging, that you can get for something like this. We actually had to buy all this cribbing because Ted did not have this. Very few people would have it. There's 25 feet, as you can see. It's been set up at the bottom of the race. And as a matter of fact, if you can hear the water because it's raining outside, you can see the camera shifts around, you can see that's the arch where the water went out. That'll become active again eventually. But we had to erect this cribbing. It goes all the way up. And we'll climb the ladder and take a look at that in a moment, to support the center of the building so that we could remove these huge structural posts that were here. As I said, this is coming out tomorrow, both of these, and that too, actually. And we'll continue, we'll put the post back in here. It'll go from the new floor up. Actually, we're going to make a beam to support this that's tied into the bedrock concrete beam. So this is removed temporarily. But this was holding up the whole center of this building as a big building. So to take the weight off of, this, because this, if we knock this out, the whole building would just collapse from the inside. It would be very bad. That didn't happen because these things are here and they're holding everything up. And already we're thinking about what fun we can have with these pieces of wood. I'm thinking about creating some cool furniture out of this stuff. But let's go upstairs and take a look at what this is really doing. because it's pretty wild. And these are, again, more temporary posts to take the weight off of, you know, what was holding up the building and support it until we replace those. So this is the second floor of Oswalds Mill on the mill side, and I'd like to show you why we built these 25-foot columns of huge oak beams. It was because of this. So you see that Z-shaped joint between these two huge beams. 50 years ago, well, actually 70 years ago, that was supported by the frame that held all the rest of the equipment that was removed in 57. And these were collapsing, they were going this way. They were held in place by those concrete beams that are coming out tomorrow, but they weren't straight like they are now. Had to build this whole thing up, and there's the same thing going on over there, to stabilize and correct this so that the building is properly structurally, you know, secured and sound. And then this will all be removed. So the next time you see me in this video series, this is going to be gone. And this will all be corrected. It's kind of like orthodontics or something, you know, with the teeth, that they're all crooked and now they're straight and everything's happy and, you know, you look good and your jaws and your teeth are like correct. There's a huge amount of work to allow us to rebuild this race properly the way it was, you know, when the building was still intact and hadn't suffered the degradation of being empty and not taken care of for, you know, 50 plus years. No one had lived in this building for 100 years when I got it. And imagine, you know, how incredibly well made this is, right? Imagine a building that is still intact 100 years later, and it's just boarded up. No one's been in it, you know? It's a testimony to how incredibly well made this is. And, you know, construction with an ethos of make it to last forever. Not lost on me, because that's exactly how I approach the audio equipment that we make. But, you know, when I first got the building, I rented it to Ralph Lauren, but then I started to, you know, put things in here. And of course, the first thing I put in here was what I loved, which was, you know, the kind of professional audio equipment that was used in cinemas. So this is a Klangfilm amplifier from the 50s from Germany. And more of these have them under plastic. These are amplifiers. These are American amplifiers from the 1930s, pretty much, from cinemas. This was a cinema amp too. This is a little later. This was on a battleship in World War II. And, you know, I put these pieces of equipment in here as I found them, salvaged them. Nobody wanted them at that time. They were really like worthless. That's changed. And started to populate this place with stuff that I found in the trash. This dining room table, for example, we made this out of joists that I took out from the ceiling, the floor above, and some bases that were what cast iron fences. This is a part that was actually buried underground to support a cast iron fence. I had a lot of fun making things up that felt like that they were right for this place. And on this level, And on the other levels, which I'm going to show you finally, after 50 videos of doing audio stuff, I'm going to give you an idea of why this company is called Oswalds Mill Audio. Because without this place, I wouldn't be doing audio, and you definitely wouldn't be seeing me. I don't know what I would be doing, but really, one of the things I learned from this place, is kind of my teacher, is that if you allow things to happen and you have halfway decent intuition, things kind of take care of themselves. The problem is that in this case it took 26 years to get to this point, but honestly, I wouldn't have been able to know what to do with this space, what we're doing down below, until now anyway. The floors above weren't hard for me to figure out. They kind of just flowed. Downstairs was another story, and it's going to be a very interesting story as it unfolds. I'm not going to give it away yet. I just wanted to share with you what's happening now, because in a few days, things I just showed you are going to be gone. This stuff will all be gone. It'll all look really nice. It won't look like a construction site. And you'll never know what went on. What went on here, and how much work and how much trouble and how much expense was invested to make something that just looks effortless. And that's another thing that I think is really important, because everyone in our culture, it's very common that there's a whole lot of effort made into looking like things are important or expensive or took a lot of effort. I kind of prefer the opposite approach. And there's an Italian term. It's really more of a fashion term that goes back, I think, to the 17th century. It's called sprezzatura, and that is when something looks effortless, like when somebody is so well dressed, and it looks like they spent no time whatsoever to look like that. That sort of effortless elegance. That's the kind of look that I like, where it just looks like it wasn't hard at all. But behind that, there's always a lot of work, a lot of really hard work, and a big investment. So today is the big day. Andrew and Ted are down there, as you can see, manually excavating to get to the base of the pylon, so that they're going to take that whole thing out, and the way they're going to do it is, I think, going to be very interesting. I'm going to go down and take a look and talk to Ted.
This not needed.
This thing weighs a fucking ton. Jesus. Okay, this is coming out.
That's coming out.
Like
what we're doing
today-ish.
Right now.
Yeah. This is Ted. Sorry, Ted Lamastra. Thank heavens I have you.
Well, thanks for having me.
And Andrew, they're just two guys today. They are, doing all these renovations. Maybe you want to give an overview about how you've seen this job and what we're going to be doing today, what you're doing today.
Okay. So essentially what I feel like we're doing is cleaning up some of the stabilization from when the hearse and the wheel were removed.
26 years ago.
And
that stuff was removed in the 50s, and then the people who came in here when I got the place poured these things and stabilized the building, which lasted 26 years, but it's not a proper job. So, I've seen you got the beams that were like this, straight.
And close to
straight, and these things got to go.
Yep, and they're going to come out today, or that's what we're working on.
Right.
A lot of this job is cleaning up. So, when these were originally cast, they didn't remove any of the concrete that spilled out. We've already taken over a yard of concrete that is spilled. So far, what we've done is we've cleaned out the spilled concrete to the point where we can remove the rest of the existing forms from when it was cast.
Yeah, but let's get to the fun part, which is how are you going to get this out? No jackhammer. I didn't see any. I know you have a saw, but you're saying you don't even want to use that. So
Yeah.
how are you going to remove these things?
So
I think that's interesting.
we're gonna try and use the simplest process first, which is essentially using what's been used for the last at least 10,000 years, which are wedges, which are one of the most simple mechanical devices, an incline, plane, and wedges. And what is done, originally what they did was they drilled holes with star drills, which is a stop rotation percussion device similar to that, except that's electric. And we'll drill some holes, we'll install these, which they're kind of laid out like that.
Wow.
And you drive this down, the bottoms of these are wider. It basically puts pressure on. So we're going to assume that the stonework comes back to the original foundation of the house.
Okay.
Or the building. And we're going to try first to make a line of holes and split, hopefully this off.
As if this was a huge boulder, as if we're like Egyptians making the pyramids.
Exactly.
I mean, you said something about sacred geometry earlier. What was that all about?
So, this knowledge, in my opinion, from attending sacred geometry classes, has been handed down. The last group of people that had somewhat direct correspondence with the Creator, I'm going to say, if you believe,
Mm-hmm.
and then going back to the Egyptians and predating them were the most ancient churches, and this knowledge, I feel like, was handed down through the Creator. They would bore holes, install wooden dowels, put drip cans on them. The wooden dowels that were installed were dry. They would absorb the water and expand and crack cubes out. And that is essentially how they quarried large blocks of stone. Once they had them, they would split them into the dimensions that they needed and move them to wherever they needed to be.
So basically, this method goes back to the beginning of time, as far as humans are concerned. Certainly, the beginning of being a stonemasonry.
Yep.
And that's what you.
Which is
that's
one of
what
the
you
oldest.
do. Ted's a master stonemason.
I wouldn't go into the category of being a master.
Well, anyway,
stonemason,
this all right. So, but this concrete, basically, you're treating it as if it was rock, and as if we were in Babylon or Egypt or Greece or
absolutely
not New Tripoli, Pennsylvania. But New Tripoli, Pennsylvania is where we're at. So this is going to come out that way, hopefully. And all right, I'll let you get to it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So we're going to make some more dust and noise.
Okay.
manly man.
It's an exodus.
This is manly man work. I want to do this when I grow up.
If I look happy, it's because of what's going on in here, and I'm amazed, come on in, at the progress that we made. It was only less than a week ago that we were in here with Ted talking about removing these big concrete pylons that were supporting the center of the building. And, it's just the two of them. It's all gone. And this will allow us to rebuild the race. That's where the water went through. So the water came through the tunnel and through here, turned a big wheel. Of course, the wheel's gone, but water can still go through here, and I could do hydroelectric, create my own power, and I could also do geothermal heat exchange so that I would do the heating and cooling for the building. In other words, this building could be completely off the grid, completely not only sustainable green, but putting electricity back into the grid. I have an electric car, never have to buy gasoline again. This is a super cool idea. And how many buildings have, running water going through them and designed for that? Of course, there's falling water, but this is way before Frank Lloyd Wright. So see, they got the cribbing up, supporting the big beams, and they're going to get those joints are being fixed. And then next is that they're going to support these two sections and pull out all this crap here and actually make this proper, because this was done in 26 years ago, the concrete work, but the whole structure had been screwed up in 1957 when they took the equipment out. So we're making really great progress. I really like being down here and seeing it change. And I don't know, I just like these structures. They'll be gone soon. So I'm just enjoying them now. And it'd be very interesting to see how this develops.